Recently, I just won the first ever major college football 25 tournament where I was flown out to LA, got to meet Reggie Bush, won an honorary Heisman key, and then on top of all of that, also won a brand new car. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dcroft, and I have been competing in professional football video games for the past 5 years. I have made well over $100,000 during my time of competing, and more importantly, I have helped thousands of people improve their game at college. Today, we are going to be breaking down some of my favorite tips in college football in terms of getting you guys better. It's my goal of always providing any type of knowledge to make you guys improve your games and get more wins. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the tip. So tip number 1, boys. What I personally like to do is always make sure my settings are always perfect going into every single game. So specifically for the defensive ones, my auto flip defensive play call, I like to have that on. Now, the reason why I like this is this will allow for your slot cornerback to line up on the correct side of the field. Next is defensive ball hawk. You have to play with this on. I've actually tried playing this off once in my entire Madden career, CFB career, however you want to call it. It is the worst experience ever. Always make sure that this is on. Next is going to be defensive heat seeker assist. Now, this is the first one that I think you guys can have on or off. Now, why do I personally have it off though? The reason why is you kind of get sucked into specific pursuit angles when you are running and trying to make a tackle. I don't like that. I personally want to have the most amount of control possible with my user whenever I do click onto him. But if you're somebody that likes to have that player kept on his same path, I would go ahead and have it on. I would just have it on 100 though. I don't know why I defaulted to 200. Just go ahead and have it on 100. That would be my personal recommendation. Next is going to be switch stick delay. Now, really 2 different settings that you can use for this, and potentially a third too if you are that type of person. The first one, and the one that I use, is none. I'm always confident in getting all my quick adjustments off pre-snap to the point where I'm never worried about flicking my right analog stick mid-adjustment and then hiking the ball, essentially allowing that switch stick to have my player user go all over the place. If that does apply to you though, go ahead and just have it on slight. Now, the last setting that you guys could mess around with is actually just disabling switch stick. Now, this might be more for my dynasty guys. If you are trying to get into competitive CFB, competitive Madden, never use this. It's going to be really, really bad. Next is going to be defensive switch assist. Similar to heat seeker, it's kind of the same thing. I personally have it off just because I like more control on my player. Next is going to be controller player art. Now, quickly to show you guys this too, I'm actually going to get into practice mode now because what this is going to do is it's going to allow, whenever I click onto a player, it's going to show my user and what zone that they are in. I really like this for adjusting because I think it makes it just easier to adjust when I can see what I am using, what they are in. So as you guys can see, we hopped into the game and you guys can see, whenever I click onto a player, it shows me exactly the adjustment that they are in. I personally really like that. Now, you might want to go ahead and mess around with it off too. So if I go all the way down here, I actually can't turn it off from in here. But obviously if you were to go back into settings, go ahead and turn that off. Something that you could mess around with. Now, the last thing that I will say is actually visual feedback. Now, I don't talk about this a ton, but this is actually, in my opinion, very helpful when it comes to not having more stuff on your screen and essentially just cluttering the screen. Now, one thing I will say is that none of these other settings that I'm going down to really matter when it comes to gameplay specific stuff. This is more just, as it literally says, it is just visual feedback. Now, you can have something like this on defensive pass coverage visual assist, but it's just not a necessity in my opinion. You guys can see I actually have all of these turned off outside of the pre-snap menu. Do want to see the pre-snap menu, but that's kind of all my settings, right, on the defensive side of the ball. A little bit different on offense. Obviously, offense is just passing. And if you guys do want to see my offensive passing settings, make sure to check out yesterday's video. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into tip number 2. Real quick, boys, if you guys are a Madden or a CFB player and want to have more fun on the game and win more, throw touchdowns like these, and then also bag the most annoying of offenses, make sure you guys check out civil.gg, where I just dropped my tournament winning CFB 25 scheme. We recently did a survey that said 99.2% of players that sign up win more games. Make sure you guys use code Dcroft to save you 30% off at the checkout. Link is in the top of the description, and you'll get instant access to all of the schemes on the website. So for tip number 2, we are going to be talking about coaching adjustments. What you guys need to do to get to your coaching adjustments, just press down on the right analog stick. Now, when it comes to your coaching adjustments, I really don't mess with these a ton. A lot of people think that like I go through these like every single play, change my zone drops, do all of this stuff. I really don't. I actually leave these typically on default most of the time. Now, for me, the one thing that I do personally have is I have my defensive motion response disabled. I just don't like it when my players pre-snap run all over the place. I do like having this disabled personally. Now, when it comes to my option defense read key and pitch key, I always just want to have the quarterback be the one with the ball. So, for example, essentially what being on aggressive does is it's going to leave the quarterback open on the option. And personally, I want that. Now, maybe that there is an option here and there that I think is a little bit better if the quarterback does keep it. But more often than not, I would rather have the quarterback keep the ball than the running back get the ball. So I do like both of these on aggressive personally. I would recommend that you don't leave these on balance, because the thing is at least if it is on, let's just say you like conservative, at least you know what's going to happen, right? If you leave it on balance, you don't know which way that read key defender is going to go. So I would just recommend changing these onto one of these settings. When it comes to like strip ball, tackling, I leave this on balanced. There's no purpose to even have it on conservative, in my personal opinion. And then same with tackling. If you actually turn it onto aggressive too, you'll actually start to see like flags and stuff like that. Basically, you can get like illegal face masks, things like that. And that stuff will just never happen on balance. Now the big one, zone drops. Really the only thing I mess with is hook curls. In terms of what I do, I like my hook curls on like 5 to 10, give or take, throughout a game. And I'll sometimes like adjust these, like example, if it's like a 3rd and 15, I'll go ahead and just put them on 15. But I'll leave these on default as well. Now we'll talk about zone drops and specific zone drop depths in my next tip. But in terms of like what I do throughout a game, more often than not, these are always going to be left on default. Then this is going to hover between default to 15. Rarely will I ever have my hooks on 20. I just don't want my yellow zones dropping that far back. With that being said, that is all of my settings. And then obviously we talked about already, I do like my defensive play call auto flip to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the next tip. So for our next tip, we are going to be talking about my zone drops. Now, I only like to utilize my cloud flat zone drops, or just flat zone drops, whenever I think that there's going to be a deeper corner route on the field. This is a great way in terms of taking away deep corner routes on the field. Now, if I was you guys, I would either have it on 30 or 25. I would never have it on 20. I think it's just going to be too low of a depth that it's not going to take away a lot of the corner routes you guys probably want it to take away. So I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it on 30 right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and pick Tampa 2 right here. Next, I am going to pick one of the better deep corner routes in this game, which is just flood. Now, for this play, we are going to really just focus on this cloud flat on this right side of the field. We're also going to give you guys a little bit of a bonus tip later here too of what I think is an even better way to have these zone drops play. So we have this deep corner route on the tight end right here. And I ignored this adjustment right here. I'm essentially just doing this so the CPU won't instantly throw the ball. Go ahead and let the CPU hike right here. And you guys will see that this corner route does a decent job being taken away from that cloud flat. Now, I want to show you guys something that's actually going to make that play even better. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing right here. And instead of a cloud flat right here, because be aware, when we put flat zone drops on, it also registers for hard flats. So if I actually go back here, you notice hard flat, cloud flat, and soft squat zones are the 3 zones that actually get put into this depth. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to put a hard flat right here. Which you guys might be thinking, why put a hard flat right here? So I'm going to go ahead, put a hard flat right here instead of that cloud flat. You guys can see hard flat right there instead this time. Go ahead and man up this guy just so they don't super throw the ball. And for whatever reason that these hard flat zone depths play a lot better than cloud flats. Really don't know why this is the case too, but what you guys will notice is how this time how much better that corner gets back right there. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to quickly pause this right here. We'll go ahead and clip the last, let's just do 3 minutes right here and show you guys what it looks like. So if we go right here, this was obviously the first time we ran this play. Zoom for a little bit further ahead. And you guys can see, right? If I just like freeze frame this, notice how this cloud flat it doesn't do a great job in terms of getting back. But for whatever reason, as you guys just saw on the last play, when we had a hard flat here, he actually like flips his hips and actually goes. So again, go ahead and roll the tape right here, watch him. And the cloud flat didn't turn his hips like this. The hard flat, for whatever reason, does turn his hips. Obviously, this is a very deep corner route too, so eventually this corner route does get open. But at this point, right, like the quarterback has also thrown the ball. Part of the reason probably actually why he started to drop right here is just because he saw that ball thrown. But you guys can see, he's doing a great job in terms of being able to bail. We're currently, let's just say the 20-yard line right here, and he does a great job of getting all the way back here, taking away that corner route. And he would have got to that 50-yard line, which is 30 yards, if we had a long enough developing play. But that's my best thing that I can recommend with zone drops for you guys to do personally. Now, other things you can mess with, typically you want to have like your curl flats probably on 5. We call this Mabel coverage right here. And the reason why you want your curl flats on 5 is just so you don't give up those underneath routes. So very standard coverage you will see from a lot of competitive people when they ever think a flood concept is going to be coming. It's just something as simple as, let's just say I'm using this guy, right? You'll see like a concept along the lines of this, right? Both of your middle linebackers just in these curl flats. And then you'll have those, let me put these back in here. Then you'll obviously have the outside cornerbacks in hard flats. Obviously giving up the seam here, but this is a great way in terms of taking away the sideline. You guys can see again how good that corner route is being taken away from the hard flat right there. That was just a bad user from me. But that's my favorite way to use zone drops. That's a little tip for you guys with the cloud flat, making them actually into hard flats when you are doing the zone drops. That being said, let's go ahead and get into the next tip. So the next tip for you guys is going to be the defensive pre-play menu and primarily quick adjusting. So what I'm doing right here and what you're seeing, the adjust defense pop-up, all I am doing is I am pressing down on the right analog stick. Then there's going to be 3 essential things that I want you guys to focus here. First one is going to be secondary, which is just clicking triangle once. The next one is going to be defensive line, which is clicking left on the D-pad. And then the next one is going to be linebackers, which is right on the D-pad. So we'll go ahead and just do defensive line first. Now, what does this mean to you guys and how can you guys use this to your advantage? So as you guys can see, there is the pinch, spread, right, and left here. Now, the biggest thing when it comes to the defensive line, you're not going to mess around with this a ton. You're probably going to more often than not just leave them stock unless you think they're going to be running the ball a specific way. So like against this defensive front right here, I think they might run the ball to the right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that left D-pad and then shift my line to the right like this. Obviously, I could pinch here too if I wanted to, but I have the ability just to move them in any which way that I want them to. Next, this is going to be very important. For every single one of these right here, the secondary, defensive line, and linebackers, if you were to click onto that button twice, so clicking left on the D-pad twice here, this is going to allow me to then select a defender. So, what I can then do from here is I could hit square, triangle, or X. Obviously, if you're on Xbox, these buttons are going to look different for you. If I go ahead and just click X, you guys can then see I have the possibility of putting him in all these different zones. I could put him in a hard flat, bluff blitz, quarterback spy, man coverage, seam flat, all these different adjustments. Now, for defensive line, really the only thing you ever are going to need the muscle memory to get down is just quarterback spying. So like for example, I could just go ahead and throw a quarterback spy out here like this. So again, left on the D-pad twice, go ahead, pull up these icons right here, select a defender, and then right in on the right stick. So that's kind of everything about the defensive line that you guys need to know. Next is going to be linebackers. So obviously we are seeing right here, linebackers is right on the D-pad. The other very important thing to mention is you don't have to press in on the right analog stick. You can just go ahead and press on the right D-pad and pull this menu up. Again, this first screen is almost like your, I guess like your base screen, honestly. This is going to control all three of the linebackers all at once. Now, really, again, you're not going to mess around a ton with this screen with linebackers. Most that you'll ever do is probably, I mean, honestly, you'll probably spread them. I think a lot of defenses is very common to spread linebackers. But you're never really going to utilize like the blitz all feature or the like right outside linebacker blitz or left outside linebacker blitz. It's not something you're really ever going to mess around with. Or the zone all, right? It's always going to put them in hook curls, by the way. It's just not really, like you guys can see it kind of stacks up right there. So it's not something you're ever really going to want to do. Obviously, again, we're clicking right on the D-pad here. And then if you guys just go ahead and click it again, same as our defensive line, it's just going to now allow us to quick adjust here. And then this is where you start to see like some differences. Obviously, you can put linebackers into deep zones. You can blitz them. You can put them in man coverage, hook curls, etc. Now, you'll mess around with probably a lot of these in terms of just being able to quick adjust. A lot of times your linebackers are probably going to be in hook curls, curl flats, or mid reads. So very common to have them be in one of those three zones right there. The last quick adjustment I do want to talk about is going to be triangle. Now, this is the most important one because this is also shading. So obviously, if we look right here, that if we click triangle, that's our secondary menu. Now, the big thing about our secondary menu is that this is also going to be our, essentially like our shading menu. Shading is a very important thing for you guys to know, and we're actually going to go ahead and talk about each one of these right here. So right here, if I flick in on my left analog stick, that's going to put me in a show 3 shell, which is just cover 3. Obviously, I can press. One big thing, do not press in this game. You don't want to press and you don't really want to give cushion. You just want to come out in the default alignment that they come out in. Then when it comes to shading, really, it's very simple. If you think that they are going to be running a corner route, shade outside, which is going to be flicking right on the analog stick here. If you think they are going to be running a post route, just shade in. You never really want to shade over top or underneath. There's like unique situations, right? Like let's just say you're on a short down and distance, go ahead, shade underneath. But you're going to notice that it doesn't really make like a huge difference in my opinion. And it's not something that I would strongly recommend for you guys. The next that we have right here is going to be individually shading. A lot of people don't know about this, but this is essentially if I want a receiver in man coverage, my defensive back to shade him differently. So for example, I see Isaiah Bond right here, and let's just say I want to jam him, right? And they actually, okay, so they don't actually jam in this, right? But I could just, for example, let's see if I can do him here. Yeah, so they're actually not even jamming. You guys can see like they're coming down a half set, but they're not coming down all the way. So right here, what I could end up doing instead is I could just shade right here. This is individually shading, so this isn't shading your entire team. Granted, you could just click triangle and shade outside by flicking that right analog stick out, but not necessarily everybody wants to always do that. Didn't mean to actually have the CPU hike the ball right here. But again, let's actually go ahead and see, can I actually manually press? So it's not even letting me manually press right here. But again, it's not even something you really want to mess around with. The biggest thing is just shading left and right is what you want to really focus on. Now, you might be wondering what Spotlight Receiver is. Spotlight Receiver, it doesn't really do anything in this game. Probably something I wouldn't mess around a ton if I was you. Next is going to be sticks, basically just playing the sticks. Essentially, all your zones will just play essentially at the sticks, which means just the first down marker too. Show blitz, again, you're never really going to mess with this. Granted, this is it's just like a different way of being able to press. There have been Maddens that this has been really, really good. It's just not something you're going to want to mess with in this game though. Now when it comes to quick adjusting, you guys can see we double click triangle right here, and then this is probably going to be where you spend most of your time in the quick adjustment menu. Now, I can obviously put so many of these deep defenders in so many different zones, and you guys can see right here, it looks a lot different. We have middle third, outside third left, deep half left, middle read, man coverage, outside third right, deep half right, and blitz. Now, tip for you guys, if you guys actually want to change that menu, there's this thing called slot cornerback. So what I'm going to do is, you guys can see packages right here. I'm going to take my right analog stick. I'm going to flick. I'm going to flick. You guys can see linebacker swap, slot cornerback. That is the one you guys want. So what I'm actually going to do right here, go ahead, pick a play right here again. And what you guys will see when I double click triangle again, I'll just go ahead and pull up a safety. Notice how he goes back to these adjustments. So they go to deep half, inside third, curl flat, hook curl, man coverage, inside corner, blitz, outside third. These are the ones you're going to want more often than not. You really don't want to deal with those other adjustments. A lot of the times it's just not going to be great in my opinion. But that kind of goes over everything. Honestly, that is everything about the quick adjustment menu. That's my tip in terms of being able to get comfortable with it and kind of situations of when I do and when I don't do things. Obviously, when it comes to like manually adjusting specific players, that stuff is a lot more in depth, I will say. If you guys really want to see me do that, I can potentially do a video on that at a point. But for the most part, that's like everything that I do from like a baseline level from the quick adjustment menu. And the biggest thing is really just shading. If you guys could get down shading, I promise you that's going to be the biggest thing for you guys in terms of being able to improve defensively. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the last tip. So for the last tip I do have for you guys is going to be the in the play defense. Now, the biggest thing that you guys can do is switch sticking, and that is with the right analog stick during the play, but prior to the pass, flicking your analog stick one way or another to switch onto any defensive player during the play. Now, if the ball has already been thrown, you want to make sure you hit circle or B. Now, my biggest tip for you and you guys is to go ahead and practice this just in practice mode and practice going sideline to sideline. Now, I would also steer clear of clicking onto deep blues, because clicking onto deep blues is when you can run into issues of really just giving up easy touchdowns. I'd also recommend just to pick any play on offense, just make sure it is pass play, and don't even worry about switch sticking to take away a specific thing. All you are worried about is practicing going from like here to here to here, right? So right there, if I go ahead and hop into instant replay, I was purely just practicing on that play of getting the muscle memory down of going from this guy to this guy right here. So if I go ahead and just play this clip right here, you guys can see able with the right analog stick, able to go to both side to side very easily. Then that's when you can start to get a little bit more advanced with it. So I'm going to go all the way to the left this time to this outside corner, and then we're going to go all the way back to the other side of the field. So if I go ahead and pause right here, you guys can see that, again, not even focusing on the routes on the field, just purely worried about my switch stick. If I go ahead and zoom out, my goal is to get over to this player. As you guys can see, just like that, right? Within like the first 2 seconds of a play, boom, boom. We're already all the way out there. I then go ahead, lurk on him for a second, and then like, okay, I want to get back over to this guy. So I go boom right here, right here. And then we actually go all the way over here, just trying to take away the drag right here. But again, that's really all I would practice, right? I would literally just sit in cover 2 and cover 3. So actually, I'll go ahead and hop into a cover 3 shell right here. And again, it's just going to be my job to get to one sideline to the other, right? Now, obviously, once you start to get more advanced with it, you got to start thinking about what routes are going to be on the field that you want to take away. So to build off of that, you want to make sure that your switch stick going into every single play is more predetermined than it is reactionary. So you always want to have a plan of attack of where and why you are switch sticking onto a specific player. The simplest example that I could give you guys is, let's just say that there is a deep corner out on Isaiah Bond right here. I'm probably going to want to switch stick onto one of these two players on this side of the field just to take away that player. But you always want to have that plan of attack, right, of where you want to go in terms of being able to switch stick. I think a lot of people run into issues when they do switch stick onto these deep blues right here. And then they also run into issues when they just don't know who they're going to switch stick prior to the play, right? Because it's very easy. I can show you guys right here that like I could easily switch stick like 5 to 10 times a play if I really wanted to. But you really don't want to do that. You want to prioritize probably switch sticking 2 to 3 times a play. Every once in a while, you might have like a crazy play that you need to switch stick like to 4 different players, but you want to stick in between that like 1 to 3 range every single play. And that's really the best thing you can do during the play to get more stops on defense. With that being said, I do appreciate you guys all for watching this video. I hope these tips were helpful for you guys, and I will see you guys all next time.